but we'll go live in 3 minutes, Matt.
Great. This is where we
Matt, you're in New York area, right?
Yeah, Buffalo, New York. So I got my mascot right here. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Snap.
Yeah, my Josh Allen is a spokesman for our company now, and as his stock has taken a ride here in the NFL, it's been fun to kind of work with him, and we've been giving a lot of signed jerseys and footballs and stuff away, so it's been cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's fun for sure.
Now we just got to win a Super Bowl and sort of make all right in the world. We're losing 4 in a row in the early 90s there, but
yeah, it's been a while.
And what about you, Jeff? You're somewhere down south, right? Aren't you?
No, I'm right on the Mason-Dixon border. I'm in Maryland, but I'm in that little skinny area where, in 10 minutes I can be in PA, West Virginia, or Virginia.
Love it.
Yeah, I used to always want to get out of this area. Hated it. And I'm still not a fan of the town that I live in because we're, an hour outside of the DC Baltimore metro. And I got some friends that live, way further south. And, of course, everything's crazy right now. But traditionally, just, the cost of real estate for this bunk little town. I'm like, why? Why do I live here?
Dude, I just had that experience. I was in Southern California last week on a family vacation, meeting up with some friends that I worked for Nissan North America a long time ago. Okay. So I, got some people in Southern California, right? And, they're all living in like these $1.5 million, $2 million homes that are, by all accounts, very small. Right. And no lot, no, postage stamp lot. And I'm sitting here thinking about, their down payment is like my whole house, living on an acre, like life is good in Buffalo, New York, from a cost of living perspective and that sort of thing. So you learn to start to appreciate different things about, a hometown or a place that, you aspired to leave as a younger person, maybe.
Yeah, definitely in that situation. Now I appreciate it here. But
also in the smaller population area, you might be left alone a little longer.
Hopefully, right?
Well, hopefully we don't have to find out.
Dude, I'm moving in Burlington.
That's why I want to keep moving closer to the mountains.
Yes.
Taking it back to the heritage,
guys.
Taking it back to the old Appalachian Trail.
All right, now we're here.
Friday.
So, let's go. You're full on now, man.
Ready.
Your first Refresh Friday appearance.
Yeah, I've been an observer at times, so I've seen a couple.
Good.
What's up?
Yeah, I tried to see if you had a profile over in the forums, but I don't know if I looked it up or not.
It might have gone. I mean, I do have. I'm Alex has refreshed me a couple times.
Okay.
Yep. And actually, I'm just realizing now that we've got everyone on the screen here, like, who's got the best hair today? Is it going to go to
Alex,
Jeff or Matt?
That's only you, buddy.
That can't be me, man. Mine's falling out.
Definitely Alex. Dude, I used to be self-conscious about these grays and stuff. Like, I was cool with the salt and pepper look, but now I'm just like going entirely white. So, I guess I'm going to rock with it. That's Anderson Cooper. Here I come.
Oh, Lord.
Well, Matt, we wanted to have you on today to talk about, what it's been like to really transition from being a dealer to being a technologist. And I think a lot of dealerships, and, when I was one, I definitely had that notion of like, I could build that better than them. And now you've done it. You've made some software, you've led a project, and and it's growing. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I think it would be worthwhile for not just the dealers to hear what it's like to make some tech as a car dealer, but also the vendors to sort of get the the flavoring too, of how that goes. But before we jump into it,
Yeah, I
how'd you
want to
get
know a little
started
bit
at
more.
West Herr?
Yeah, guys. I mean, I have to give you a little bit of like an elevator pitch of me or where my background has gone. So prior to going live here, I was mentioning I worked for Nissan North America to start my professional career. I spent 5 years there in sales and marketing. I looked around and didn't want to be any of my bosses, so I quit my job. I was about 26 or 7. I had $10,000 to my name, and I started a online T-shirt company, early Shopify user, 2006. And I was selling T-shirts out of the trunk of my car and playing poker online to pay my bills for 2 years.
That's great.
And it was great. You know, I was living in Southern California, driving to Vegas, up in San Francisco, where my now wife was living. It was a wonderful time, actually. And then the 2008 sort of drama in the U.S. economy happened. The online landscape for poker changed because of regulatory issues with the Department of Justice. That changed sort of the liquidity of that environment. And I knew just responsibly, I wanted to get married and have kids, and being an online poker bum probably wasn't going to be the way. Right. So I had a chance to come to West Herr and sell cars. So I moved to my hometown, Buffalo, New York, and I sold cars at our Nissan store. I moved January 15th, 2019 from San Francisco to Buffalo, New York. The first 2 weeks I was in Buffalo, it snowed every day for 2 weeks. 6 inches of snow every day.
Welcome
and
to
I'm
Buffalo.
Washing cars off. Like, what the hell? I was just on the beach in California. What did I do? But
Yeah,
you know, it was
that's a big move.
Big move, you know. And so, but I wanted to get married, have kids. I am married. I have 4 kids, and I've spent the last 14 years or so, or 13, I guess, at West Herr. And I've done a lot of jobs. I sold cars. I did F&I. I was a used car manager. I was a general sales manager for a couple of years at a very busy growing store. So I have a lot of like front of the house retail experience. I also helped create the marketing department at West Herr. So we didn't have a marketing department prior to me. There was no marketing director. We had an eBiz director who was kind of managing websites. We had an advertising person that sort of managed newspapers and direct mail. You know, we had various people doing siloed pieces of marketing. And I came in and, like the Tasmanian devil for several years, worked towards consolidating our brand image, our brand tools, just growing consistency in terms of how we communicate to consumers in the public space. And so I've been doing that for 10 years now, right? And, you know, along with that job, and as that's grown, a lot of marketers in auto, as you guys can attest to, are responsible for managing vendors, right? There's a lot of vendors in our space. Go to NADA right now. Like if anybody's in Vegas right now, right? So vendors everywhere. And so there's skills that are required to manage vendors. You can be proactive. You can give a vendor good dialogue and engagement, good feedback. You can be passive. You can be, you know, hard on a vendor. You can demand more of them. There's a lot of skills that you learn along the way. But one of the things that struck me is had all this real world insight into how West Herr operates. We have 350 salespeople. We have 32 stores. But back then we had maybe 20. And, you know, we get this real-time feedback of what's happening with customers, what's happening with dealership employees. And that feedback is really, really valuable for technology companies, right? So I spent a lot of time with Cox back then, dealer.com in particular. That's kind of where I met Alex to begin. We were the last, fun little tangent here, we were the last willing participant to enroll in dealer.com CRM. And I did it knowing upfront that it was going to be rolled into Cox's portfolio and potentially sunset. I did that because I was hoping that all the best little nuggets from dealer.com CRM would transition into Vin Solutions. It ended up not sort of working out that way, and we don't need to get into all the details of that. However, it was a really good lesson in our tech providers that dealerships use, and we spend millions of dollars a year on technology, right? They're not always aligned with what's in the best interest of dealers. So I think it started to plant that seed for me of like, okay, are there some things that maybe we should think about building, or or just changing in our tech stack to see if we can go a different way. What's up, Ben? Ben got a kick out of that, sounded like. But
I like his next comment.
So
up here in a minute.
So, like the reality is, you start getting this feedback loop of managing vendors and working with tech. And I got to meet some product people, right, at Cox and wherever else. And what I started to see was there was very few product people and a lot of customer support people and sales people, right? So then it turned into this thing of like sell or be sold kind of vibe. And all that I can tell. So let's fast forward to, you mentioned becoming a technologist. I wouldn't give myself enough credit for that yet. I'm still sort of a vendor manager. I'm a project manager. I'm the executive vice president of a software application we created called Streamline. Streamline is designed specifically to help with the vehicle selection process. Right now is really being used as an in-store utility only. But there's potentially some tangential benefits in digital retailing workflows and other things. And it helps connect the dots between what consumers can afford and what lenders will approve. Okay, so that's all Streamline does on its surface. And what's cool is Streamline was born out of a problem at West Herr. It was a unique problem. We have 32 locations. We share all of our used cars across the group. We have 4,000 used cars. And it was a unique problem of how do I find the cars that customers can afford?
And be able to get approved on, right?
And be able to make a deal, right?
So anyone reading between the lines there, you're mostly looking at those C and D tier customers, right?
So, obviously, some vendors are more nimble than others, and some can't really accommodate your requests at all. And Streamline was really organically a thing that organically grew. It started as a spreadsheet, turned into a SaaS product, and then turned into all of our internal users were using it. And then it turned into, hey, can we sell this thing to external dealers? And that's really where we find ourselves now, really trying to figure out what sort of account management needs, performance management needs are required. How do we responsibly grow? How much capital do we need to grow? Some of that investment layer conversation, that admittedly people like Alex and people I've met along the way that are doing this and have done it in the past, have provided a lot of insight and value to me and guidance of, hey, like, this is what I've learned in my journey, or, hey, maybe you could consider this. So again, I wouldn't call myself a technologist, but we do have a software product that we do sell to external dealers. And I still work at West Herr. So
I've got some bad news for you, Matt. You are now a technologist. You have
all right.
project managed, product managed. You have led this thing, and you have earned that title. So now you bat on all three sides of the automotive fence. You've been an OEM, dealer, and now a vendor. That's I don't know if there been more people who've been on the moon than people who hold all three titles.
What's so cool, guys? Like our industry is awesome, right? Like we're not selling vacuum cleaners. We're selling an expensive purchase. It's a big deal, big ticket item for people. And we're also catering to the dealer network that's a very cash flow rich environment, which allows for potentially innovation. Sometimes dealers are criticized for not innovating enough or quick enough. I think that there's some reasons for that we can certainly banter back and forth about if you want. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great privilege to be in this industry, and we all sort of get to benefit from that.
Last week we had Ben Hadley on, who was commenting a moment ago, and he was speaking about how the automotive business, in his opinion, has actually leapfrogged a lot of other retail industries. And they're looking at us now as technological leaders and leaders in process and things. I mean, when you think about it, like despite how we all might feel about digital retailing's implementation, we have fused the online shopping experience with the in-store experience as an industry. Now, again, we might all feel a little different about how that's gone down, but if we could put that headline in USA Today tomorrow, it is a true statement. So, and there's a number of other things we've done too.
I agree with that. I think auto is so unique because tier 1 to tier 3, right, is a very interesting environment. And West Herr as a corporate strategy, I'm not telling anything that's a secret, but we want to be good corporate partners. We want to respect the fact that we didn't build the car, right? So if Ford has an idea of how they want to retail their cars to consumers, we want to do the best that we can to accommodate that vision. At times, it does compete with our regional brand, right? So we have West Herr as a brand that we think of like a Carvana or whatever. That's not always in sync with what the OEMs are asking us to do.
No. No, that's always a challenge.
And it's getting worse, admittedly.
Yeah, you'd think it would have gotten better by now, but it's not.
My observation with the industry as it is right now, new car wholesale, the new car wholesale market, there's less cars available, right? So all of these field people, field representatives of OEMs who traditionally had been, this is a disrespectful term, but wholesale monkeys, for like the lack of a better word, like that was ultimately what we were tasked with doing. And now it's not that. So the regional teams are trying to figure out, how do I add value and relevance to this industry? And many have chosen this path of digital retailing or sales process, right? How the sales process should go. And look, having been on the OEM side, I can tell you I had no observation of how difficult it is to sell a car to a human being until I did it.
It's quite fun, isn't
it? Yeah. That old saying, you need to walk a mile in a man's shoes, right?
Right. I do think sometimes as technologists who haven't maybe sold a car or whatever, sometimes technology is trying to jump the shark over people. And my opinion of what technology should do is it should empower the people that work in retail and make them better, make them faster, make them more not insightful, right?
Oh, I got a sound bite for this one. Hold on a second. If we can build tools. Hold on. You deserve this one.
I make that
into. we got all these little sound things we forget to play, but you get an amen on that.
I'm always glad he forgets about them.
Yeah, no, for sure.
By the way, just to air check, am I coming in okay? Because there's a couple I get a little bit of delay here on some of the things. Like, am I sounding okay to you guys?
You might be a little soft, but I might be able to help with that. Let's see.
Okay.
You need to put that in a quote. I like the way you phrased that.
Well, I think, we're all human in this, right? And I think if you read between the tea leaves with technology, look at like Uber drivers and some of the unique challenges that they face with rising gas prices, maybe, or right, like technology just doesn't solve all the human intricacies and problems. It can maybe create other problems, right? Like vAuto, as an example, was a tool that we've been using at West Herr for 15 years now. And that created a whole layer of people in our organization called inventory control managers, who then do pricing and merchandising and other things. Well, that job didn't exist prior to vAuto, right? So not only do I spend $350,000 a year for vAuto, but I also created $1 million a year plus in extra payroll to manage that tool.
There are some operators out there who are saying, what? But another one that kind of gets forgotten in how it shaped our industry and did make dealers' lives better is dealer track. When I first started selling cars, we had to walk over to this little FICO typewriter machine. And it spat out like a stock ticker, the credit report. Um, and then the deal had to be all bundled up in a folder and taken over to the F&I office. And the F&I manager spent most of his day on the fax machine, and then getting on the phone and asking somebody at the bank to get it off the fax and get it into the loan manager's hands, and then get into some negotiation over, hey man, I beat you at golf last week. You got to approve this one for me. So
Good old days.
yeah, but DealerTrack just sped all that up. You didn't have to spot deals like you used to, and that was really, really helpful. And it's just happened so long ago, we've forgotten that. But yeah, vAuto and DealerTrack for sure definitely took your charge of make the dealers' lives better.
But it comes with some ramifications, right? Yeah, it's not always, and there's disruption can definitely impact people, pay plans, processes, right? And I think all of those things are what is at stake right now as dealers try to navigate like the digital retailing climate in particular. Where's the role of the BDC in that? Does sales managers need to be earlier involved in a customer that's working themselves through a 5-step online process? Where's the salespeople? Do they humanize themselves to build relationship value virtually? Can they do virtual walkarounds via chat? Things of that nature. But a lot of these things don't come just organically. Like you got to maybe shove them into the ecosystem a bit, right? And really encourage.
Do you have most of your dealerships trying to take a process that humanizes themselves? Are you guys using any type of technology around video walkarounds and such?
Just 2 days ago, we had a reinforcement of our existing chat tool that does have FaceTime features that we're not fully leveraging. So I would say it's an opportunity for us to operate better at a West Herr level. And I mean, that's what, for me, what a lot of this technology stuff comes down to is execution. Do the players that you're putting the technology in the hands of, do they care? Are they properly incentivized to care? I had a post on LinkedIn recently about F&I managers blowing up deals. And it was a point about the climate that we're in right now. There's a lot of convenience or easy button related to just submitting a handful of deals or a deal to a handful of lenders and getting a green check mark. That's all that's required. But sometimes deals require a little more work than that to get approved. And the art and the skill of that, if not properly incentivized, will be discouraged. Because why do I want to work that 580 deal on an Escalade that you sold them too much car on, right? I don't just throw it back to the sales manager. This isn't a deal, right? And the finance office can kind of blow it up and stuff. So incentives, people, pay plans, all of these things matter with respect to adoption and what you sort of hope to get to from a place of disruption or technology change.
And good leadership. That's where a lot of it falls down. You can have the best employees, but if you have the wrong leader, none of this happens well.
Let's be real. Can we be real? It's Friday. So the retail environment over the last 2 years has been the best 2 years in car business history.
Mm-hmm.
So we just had a meeting with our general managers to remind all of us that anybody living in the executive ranks of and variable departments at dealerships have probably benefited to a greater degree than we ever have before. And that wasn't because of our hard work or whatever. There were some macro changes that happened that benefited us all. So, but how do we prevent getting complacent, fat and happy, right? To Alex's point about leadership, we've had this phrase. I'll borrow it from a former COO. He's got this phrase: "Speed of the leader, speed of the pack." And I think that's largely true, right? And at least in our company, Scott Beeler is the president and CEO. And I would challenge you to find a harder working auto executive on the planet.
Well,
Sure, he appreciates you saying that.
He's not watching, by the way. I don't think.
he might catch the recording later though.
There we go.
But now he would. Yeah, I mean, Matt, you're proof that you've got good leaders at West Herr. So they've empowered you to soar. So, and by the way, you've actually crushed a lot of the questions we had prepared for you. So,
well, so let me go deeper then. Like, I'll get real. Like building tech at West Herr, there's like a competing interest now. Like, how do I allocate my time, right? As a person, right? I got Streamline and it's growing, and there's external client demands or account management needs or capital raising needs or whatever. But there's also 32 stores. We sold 60,000 cars last year. We serviced 500,000. Are we doing the right things with respect to communicating to customers in Western New York? Right. And all of these things are constantly changing and fluid. And we have great people at West Herr, right? And I think that's what informs my bias of technology should make people better, because we have a lot of hardworking, dedicated, caring people, low turnover. When we screw up, we try to recognize that. We say we're sorry and try to make people better than even, so at a philosophical level, it's about people. The Chevy Silverado that you buy from us is no different than the Chevy Silverado you buy from somebody else down the street, right? So we have to do a job of embracing our people. Now, I've observed other dealership groups that don't care as much about the people, or they're looking for a quick solution, easy button thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes as technologists, we can sell them the easy button, right? It doesn't always pan out that way, but I don't want to shape retail and turn it into a kiosk. When I go to Rite Aid or whatever, and now they don't have people at the front of the counter anymore, they just have a self-checkout. Or you go to the grocery store.
I hate them.
Right?
I refuse to use them. My kids get on me because I'll make it stand through lines at the grocery store versus going through the self-checkout. I do it out of defiance.
I think Instacart is an awesome example for automotive retail. And I think there's a lot of interesting learnings for Instacart as a thing where the grocery stores have basically subvented out their brand experience and reputation to Instacart employees who may do a good job picking the raspberries. Maybe they don't, right? But at the end of the day, there's human beings being powered by technology, which in my case, I haven't been to the grocery store in 2 years. I just Instacart everything. It shows up at my house. It's great. I save hundreds of hours of time, right? By not having to go there. I do kind of miss my late night meanderings through the empty aisles of the grocery store.
It's my little getaway sometimes.
Right.
You've got 4 children, man. You got to take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah.
Jeff, you have 4 kids? I didn't know that.
No, we're talking about you.
No, I've got 2.
Yeah, I got 4 kids.
I mean, I've been lost on everything else you said since that. Just I can't get over 4 kids. I got 3, and man, I'm
a great privilege, a great gift being a parent. I like to tell new parents that it's the best thing ever and the worst thing ever at the exact same time. And what a privilege, though, it is to be going through that journey.
What are the ages?
9 and under.
Okay. Yeah, you're busy.
Yep.
That's awesome, though. That's awesome. Yeah.
So how can you talk? I mean, what do you guys want to talk about with streamline development? Like one nugget.
I wanted. But can you break down? Just give us a little bit more background behind Streamline and what it does and what it's helped you to achieve at the group.
Yeah, 100%. So Streamline, as I mentioned, is really just a vehicle selection tool. So we're not trying to be a desking tool. We're not trying to be a website. We're not trying to be anything other than really a filtering mechanism by customer affordability. Okay. So that's what Streamline does. And it just requires 2 easy inputs, credit score and income, to drive real-time results of what cars customers should be looking at. Okay. So it can be used by salespeople, greeters, sales managers, finance managers, whomever. It can also help with reselection which is a bit of a pain point in our industry. So if you get a conditional callback from a lender on, hey, we like the customer, but this structure is wrong or whatever, it allows the dealership an opportunity to reselect a car and maximize their opportunity within that customer, right? In a very transparent, easy to understand upfront way, right? So that's Streamline in a nutshell. Like, I've shown Alex a bunch. I mean, it's a simple tool, right? But I'll say this, simplicity is hard to achieve. And Alex can attest to this with CRM and other things, right? Like, simplicity doesn't come by accident. It comes with intentional, ruthless, narrow focus, like OCD on pixels, right? Like, just real estate in general.
All those nasty things you heard about Steve Jobs.
100%. And I think, like, the filtering of feedback is a really hard thing to do, right? Because especially with technology companies and founders that have a vision for something, they may be in their closet very determined to create something a reality. If they're so close-minded that they can't hear from the actual users what they like or don't like, often they're going to miss the mark, right? Unless they're maybe Steve Jobs and like just like those insane geniuses or whatever. But I think the biggest, most important thing that I've learned in tech development is this sort of MVP strategy of like, what's the fastest way we can get it in the hands of users? What types of feedback can we get along the way to then grow and build and improve the product as we go? I'll give a really small example.
Before you do, Matt, can you define MVP for people who might not know what it stands for?
Oh, sure. Minimally viable product. So I'm trying to make the smallest, easiest, fastest thing to get to market so that I can have the market test the thesis, right? Example of a simple change in Streamline, but was born out of some confusion from users. So we have an affordability engine, okay? So we used to call the front end of the tool a probability estimator. Probability is like a fancy word, right? It's like math and like, I can't remember. And like, what does that mean exactly? And we changed it to be budget calculator. Because that's basically what it does. But what I want a salesperson that just sees this tool for the first time to know what it does and know why I should use it, right? And so simple things like that were really born out of observation from our end users, people using the product every day.
So you do have it. This is in the hands of all your dealerships. And from what I gather, you said earlier, this is something that's used on the showroom floor. I take it this isn't migrated over to the websites or anything. This is a tool for the dealerships to use. Are consumers able to interact with it, or is it just something, again, you just keep in the hands of the salespeople?
So there's different views. There's a manager view, which shows all the secret sauce, right? Front end profit and cost and things of that nature. There's a salesperson and customer friendly view that hides all of that. So they can use it in-store showroom side by side if they want. We have product sort of visions of helping connect the dots in the website world. However, there's still this component of like human beings, right? And what I'm wrestling with, I guess, a little bit is we want consumers to be educated. We want them to be sort of articulated to in ways that they can understand what is my affordability, right? Because if I exclude the Escalade that they want and they can submit a lead on at another dealership, right? I'm doing sort of a disservice to people that use Streamline up front without human beings being involved, right? So that's kind of what we're thinking about, when and where. I saw there was a quick mention of or ask of KPIs, just to kind of address that comment really quick. So there's a couple business KPIs that we use. We measure closing ratios of sub 620 customers as a benchmark for Streamline business success, because we feel that that's the lowest hanging fruit. Okay, this is not a subprime finance tool. However, this is the lowest hanging fruit. How does the dealership do when a sub 620 comes into the dealership, and what happens? And at West Herr, what happened before Streamline is we would sell 20% of them. After using Streamline, we last year we sold 43% of these customers. Okay.
Wow.
So that's created thousands of more deals,
Right. With the
millions
number of
of
stores you
dollars.
have.
It's a
Huge.
remarkable change in business. And if you look at the macro landscape of consumer affordability, right, inflation, macro customer credit scores, 40% of consumers have a credit score of 680 or less. There's a remarkable affordability challenge on the horizon for automotive. And so that would be one KPI internally that we look at. Externally related to the product itself, what I look at is number of searches in the tool. Okay, so last month at West Herr, we had over 12,000 searches in Streamline. So I consider that a very good amount. I think there's opportunity for a 5 or 10x increase because it's not every employee, it's not every time or whatever. So there's lots of upside to use it more, but that is growing. That number of searches is growing, which shows us people are using the tool. We're continuing to sell cars. We're providing a good customer experience. Customers are enjoying the process of finding a car that they can get approved on, right? So that's a tool that, or a metric that I look at both internally and with our external clients to see, are they using it? Because I don't want to sell software to dealers that don't use it. I'd rather they not.
There's a lot of that going on.
100%. 100%.
Yep, the fastest way to churn right there. So when you guys were, well, you took it from spreadsheet to, okay, we're gonna turn this into usable software. Where in that line of thinking did you say, we're going to take this outside of West Herr at some point?
So our original founder of Streamline, John Schultz, he's still with us. He's our finance director at West Herr. And it was really, he's the godfather. He's the genesis of this idea. And it really started with me and him having conversations about, I wonder if there's more here. Is there more value here? Right. And where can we take that? And I have this overarching thesis that if technology works at West Herr, it can work at other places, because we have a tendency to break a lot of things. We're a big, regionally dense group where a lot of tools are built for a single store, right? So there's a lot of things of that nature that we tend to get frustrated with in technology or really challenge our vendors to improve. So then the thinking is, if it works at our company, well, it can work at other places. But I'll tell you, there's a subtle learning that I've experienced in the last 2 years of trying to sell to dealers. I used to joke with people, hey, I'm getting involved with Streamline because I want to get punched in the face by a bunch of dealers. Right? And that's kind of what's happened, right? Like we get a lot of great feedback, a lot of positive engagement. But then there's also frustrating moments of why don't you use it? Or here's a great example. I take for granted at West Herr that we share all 4,000 used cars that we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not overly common.
And there's pay plan implications. There's reasons why at dealerships, ownership structures, family structures, when you have a family where like all 4 kids get a piece of the business, but like there's separate pieces of the business, right? So there creates these incentive structures to not cooperate. But over time, big groups have to wrestle with that problem, because if you are going to be competing with a Carvana or whomever, you need choice, you need vehicle selection, and you have a competitive advantage having thousands of cars as opposed to having, say, 53 cars on your single store lot.
Yep.
So, but that would be a nuance. I would just say, like, as we think about how does Streamline add value to like a single point dealer versus a group versus a national group that has logistics challenges of shuffling cars, all over the place.
And what has your go-to-market strategy been with Streamline on the sales side? How are you getting in touch with dealers? And making MRR, which is I think the three letters or ARR that matter most to many vendors.
Well, shout out to John Fitzgerald and Jason Kozak, who those guys are, guys on the street making things happen. Look, it's funny. I'm the marketing director at West Herr, and you would think I would lead with like a marketing first behavior. But really all we've done is identify dealers with used cars and lots of used cars and talk to them about the value of Streamline, right? I have no real interest in generating too much organic demand right at this stage of Streamline's career, because I want to grow intentionally. I don't want to grow and just say yes to everyone because that's, producing the MRR. So it's been an interesting balancing act. We are thinking about ways to either expand our velocity in sales conversations, right? How do we have more demos, more conversations? But we know who our audience is. And the beautiful thing about Streamline, as opposed to some technology that I've been presented myself, is if you don't understand what Streamline does for you in like 3 minutes, you're not our client, right? And so that's the beauty of our pitch, in that it can be complementary to existing tools that live within a dealership environment, but does not require a PhD or a owner's manual really to use it. And we want the people that are like-minded, that think, hey, I see the value here in being proactive with vehicle selection.
That sounds like a tool made by somebody who's a car dealer. Don't need a lot of training.
I'll tell you this. Before I got into Streamline, there was a CRM company. I forget the name of it now. I think it started with an H or something. It was like designed by dealers for dealers, but it was designed
Higher
in a way.
Gear.
Okay, yeah, perfect. But it had all these like juvenile like icons and shit on it.
Hold on a second.
Oh, you're bringing it back
somewhere.
Stop talking about it.
No, go ahead.
A few years.
Well, just that I would say, like, before I got into building anything that's related to technology, I kind of scoffed at that notion as a like fancy executive dealer guy. I was like, hey, what the fuck do you know about building technology? And I, whether that was a good tool or not for me to comment. We never used it. I think Alex is trying to pull up a screenshot of it, but anyhow.
Hold on. There's our questions for you, by the way, but that's not.
Oh, cool. Did we answer them all?
Wrong thing. Here we go. There it is.
There it is.
Everyone remember this.
To you. Yeah, good old Higher Gear.
That button needs parents. That's awesome. Needs parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some questionable ones in here.
Yeah, there's a lot of learnings, and it's a fun process to be able to build tech. Shout out to other people that are dealers building tech. Like I know Walzer, Colton Ray is an example of a guy that worked at a dealer, worked through the dealership ranks and is building some tech, AutoFuse. And there's, even you, Alex. I mean, you worked at a dealership, and then a vendor, and then now obviously with Frickin'. I think that there's a lot of folks that have had, a lot of experience that they're trying to then add value to the industry in a way that sometimes these big technology companies miss the mark, or they don't fully appreciate the talent that they have, right? You see acquisitions of tech, Roadster, CDK buys Roadster. Okay. Well, a lot of the people I knew from Roadster aren't there anymore. Is that good?
I was surprised to see Michelle take off this month.
Right.
She was their biggest cheerleader.
So I don't know if
the shock of Higher Gear is still wearing on the audience. I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben Hadley.
I wonder how many software companies or services originated at the dealership, on the dealership level, and then blossomed into something big like what you're doing.
Well, we know DealerTrack has roots in the dealership. Mark O'Neill came out of the same store as Quinn. Dang it. Why is this giving me Jeff? You Mile One acquired
Motorworld.
them. Motorworld.
Mile One.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
Motorworld.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then of course Dale Pollock. Yeah. So V Auto's got some roots there.
We use a service called Auto iPacket.
Yeah.
And from the sound of your story and knowing what how they got their start, sounds pretty similar. It was something that they were doing at the dealership level. I think it was when because they were Mercedes-Benz and that's where it got started. You'd have someone come in to do an audit on the inventory, especially with CPOs, and you'd have to put all this information together in a packet to be able to hand it to them. So they were doing that physically, and then that turned into some type of spreadsheet, and then from there turned into a piece of software that would just aggregate all this information, put it in a file. It was something that they used at the dealership. It was pretty successful. And then of course then they're able to see, oh, where else would this work, where else can we use this, and then from there it turned into to a full-blown software. And from what I gather, they do a pretty good business, but that got its start. It was a Mercedes-Benz dealership in what's University of West Virginia? Morgantown, Mercedes-Benz, I believe. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, but it's definitely neat to watch that grow, from an idea on the dealership level into something full-fledged.
But don't you think so that our industry has this sort of vacuum cleaner of like the majors, right? CDK, Reynolds, maybe, Cox, Cars.com, their ecosystem with DI. It's interesting that these are like the gravity of like the next level up of money and customer support and just infrastructure. So there are these like interesting phases of life that these startup entities go through. And whether they should be acquired fully or not, I think is still to be decided maybe. Like I look at ACV, like a fun little fact about ACV. This is the biggest miss in my career to date. If you guys know what ACV auctions is, you know what that is? Yep. So this company was founded by a salesperson at West Herr. He was selling cars in 2014. He joined at West Herr. He joined up with the tech incubator in Buffalo called 43 North, and subsequently went on to raise $350 million of capital and went public at a $4 billion valuation 7 years later.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. That's awesome.
My goodness. But West Herr could have bought, they hear it could have story, could have bought 25% of ACV for $1 million pre-revenue. And we didn't.
Yeah, that was a miss.
It was.
That was a miss.
So, but we've had other opportunities like invest in X time early on. We didn't do that. We've missed some. And that's okay. It's part of the journey, I think. But look, Streamline's not on ACV level. It's not a $1 billion unicorn thing. So for me, it's about identifying.
Wait till inventory comes back. You might be surprised how far it goes.
Well, look, even a shout out to Prodigy. So Prodigy got acquired for $100 million by Upstart.
Shout out to Ben Hadley and
yeah.
And by the way, Ben, you're being too kind in some of your call outs here, especially around dealer.com.
I was talking to somebody else about what was Prodigy probably realistically worth when they got acquired, and somebody felt like they were worth about 10 million. But this other player, out of convenience or get caught up in the hype, or they have too much capital and don't know what to do with it, whatever, buys them for 10x that. So that valuation.
I heard the multiple was much higher than that.
So, but I think it's just fascinating. It's a fascinating landscape. It shows that some ideas can be very, very valuable with the right partners, with the right ability to pour gas on the fire. And I think Streamline's in a camp like that. I think with the right strategic partners, it can have much wider reach than the small business that it is today, smallish, business. But that's what's so cool about our industry. Like, there's no one size fits all. There's a lot of ways, a lot of smart people, like you two guys, considering technology and considering innovation. So what's Hadley saying?
What's the conference that Cliff Banks puts together, that he's sort of tried to landscape an idea around this, where different technology providers will come and they'll showcase. You've got, and then X amount of dealerships, or dealership owners, people, dealerships that maybe want to invest in some different technologies and software within the industry, gives them the ability to do that. Which I thought was a pretty unique concept. I'm pretty sure it's Cliff Banks that holds that small conference.
I would say 20 groups are another good place for that. I see that happening a lot for like businesses like West Herr. We're in a 20 group with Sheehy and Greenway and Mac Hake and some of these other like really good groups across the country. And as long as it's an engaged, active, participating 20 group, and it's not more like just about golf or whatever, like I think there can really be a lot of learnings through those of like, hey, I tried this thing over at my company and here's what happened. And there's danger in that too, because sometimes the owner or principal doesn't quite have enough proximity to the innovation. So maybe they don't know what they're talking about, or you're right. Like we've had some ideas that have come across. Funny story. I was at a 20 group meeting. All the marketing teams came to support the ownership. So I was there representing the marketing team. And one of the dealers said, hey, Matt, I bought this email list, 100,000 emails, in market customers. What should I say to those people? And I said, you shouldn't have bought the list. So, and what I meant by that was really just a conversation of like permission-based email marketing and like, have you earned the right to even email them to begin with? And his observation was, well, it's free. I can email these people and it's not going to cost me anything. And I'm like, yeah, but what if they hate your message or hate you as a result of like spamming them or whatever? So,
you need to do it on the 30th of the day of the month, right?
That's right.
It's the best price you'll ever get.
No, that was a good response to him.
How are we doing on time? I don't know how long the show goes or whatever.
We got a few more minutes. Okay. And
yeah, I had a.
Go ahead, Jeff. I'll save mine for the end.
I had just had a question. Being on the dealership side for so long, and creating your product with Streamline, how has your view of vendors changed?
I think it's improved my empathy for the challenge that vendors have, technologists have, in servicing dealerships. We are definitely filled with a lot of alphas, a lot of big egos, a lot of well-paid, very well-off clients that really get what they want, right? And so sometimes I think the pressure on technology is to pander to those writing the check, which may or may not be a good decision for their product, right? And I think like we're all doing that at some level, like pandering to our boss or spouse or whatever. But I would just say that that's been a pretty eye-opening thing for me as we've learned. And then also for me, trying not to be so opinionated on how it should be, right? So like we actually have clients that use Streamline in ways that not really intended, but they see value in the way they're using it. And I don't want to be critical of their assessment. Like, fine, for them, it works and it's adding some value, not perhaps in exactly how we're thinking about it, but it's providing value to them.
And that's all that matters.
It's funny. The question I was looking to ask was about the users and how it's changed your view of them, especially since, you've gone from being in marketing and also being in management over the salespeople and the sales managers and even the GMs. And now you're catering to them in a very different way. It's Does that change the dynamic in the relationship?
Well, I think trying to find some common ground, and trying to, I never want to present myself like I have all the answers. I may have a perspective based on some experience. And so if I can effectively convey that story or that experience, then maybe I can, have you aligned in thinking a little bit. But also, guys, I think that there's a really important point about intentionality here. And if I'm swimming upstream and a dealership just doesn't get it, I don't need to lose sleep over that. I just need to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sure.
And so I think there's that balancing act. You just want to make sure you're not being too stubborn, too arrogant, too ego driven, but then at the same time being a realist. If they're not seeing the light, and then cool, no worries.
Well, I hope one day you get to go out and raise some capital and have the experience of doing that, because that's a whole other beast in itself. Last we talked, I was sharing a few things with you on that front, and it would be fun after you've had that experience to have you back on the show and run through that for everyone, because raising capital and appeasing investors is an art and something that I think a lot of vendors are dealing with.
Well, it's so funny you said that. I mean, for a while, I never felt like Streamline as an entity needed to raise capital, because I'm like, West Herr, we got money, like we're good. But there are potentially reasons why to seek strategic investment, whether just aligning with other partners, creating a win-win environment, things of that nature. So my mind is definitely turned on that, and I think we'll be seeking some investment capital in some form this year. So I would love to come back and share, like, hey, I got punched in the face by these investors. Here's what happened.
Yeah, man, you're just getting punched all around, huh?
Love it. Love it.
Do you is there a website for Streamline if someone wants to check it out by,
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
maybe
It's
someone
Streamline.
maybe an investor out there wants to check it out, maybe a dealership wants to check it out.
Streamline.auto. You got it.
Okay.
All right.
Very cool.
And Matt, if anyone were to reach out to you after the show, is LinkedIn a good way to do that, or is there another?
That's a perfect way. I'm mostly responsive. I go through moments where I have black hole. You're not going to get to me in any way, probably, but yeah, you can.
Well, we'll throw it over in the forums as well, and
cool.
I'll try and attach your contact information to the post.
Just a note about that. I shared with a friend of mine, Joe Bullard Automotive. Ty Bullard is the principal down there in Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. And he was struggling with his marketing team a little bit. This is real-time conversation. He's working on, building out his team and that sort of thing. I got to meet his marketing team. I talked to him privately about things to consider. So I just enjoy the industry, right? Like I don't do that for any other reason other than I like to. And so to that point about like LinkedIn connections and stuff, like I've met a lot of people on LinkedIn or through LinkedIn, and it's been a great blessing. I'm not really that interested in like the cold call, sales pitchy, all that bullshit. But like if I can help somebody, like a marketing person in auto, whether it's OEM or whether it's a dealer or whatever, like if I have some experience or background in something, I would love to connect and help and share. Like I'll at least listen to hear what your problem is, or, and maybe I can help in that way. Because I just like today's conversation. I hope that there was a couple little insights or value nuggets given. And if I can provide a little bit of value to the audience or the participant or the person, then I just, I think we're all in this together, right? And we're all in different phases of our journey. And so that would be my call to anybody on LinkedIn. If you want to chat, let's do it. I may or may not respond to you, so you have to be creative, perhaps. But
well, that's mighty kind of you.
Yeah, but can imagine you're getting hounded quite often for for
Well,
West
look, you
Herr
guys
to
do
buy
a great job
something.
too. You guys have created like a ecosystem and a Paul Revere sort of moment where lots of people can come together and provide value. You're doing the same thing. So I think like hats off to you guys with, the forum obviously is a huge resource for me and other people in the industry. And even trying to do stuff like Refresh Friday is a fun way to connect with others, in the industry. So kudos to you guys for doing it. You're in the arena. You're making it happen. You've
Thank
been
you.
in the arena. You've been in the arena a long time. So,
Too
just
long.
kudos off to you. Yeah, too long. Right.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, too long.
Well,
That's
we
the industry,
appreciate
though,
that,
right?
Matt.
Awesome.
Again, the invite's open for a future visit on Refresh Friday, and we'll connect again pretty soon, I'm sure.
All right, guys. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for the time, and keep in touch.
Of course.
We sure will. Thanks, Matt.